Ladies and gentlemen, this is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. President Bashar al-Assad received a Russian governmental delegation headed by Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin, head of the Russian side, to the Joint Committee of the Syrian-Russian Trade, Economic, Scientific and Technical Cooperation. Talks dealt with bilateral relations and the importance of broadening aspects of the standing cooperation with President al-Assad, appreciating Russia's stances in support of the Syrian people in their war against terrorism. The President affirmed the role of Russia in preserving stability in the world and confronting the Western attempts of dominating countries in the region. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi affirmed that the fourth Russian-Chinese veto for Syria serves the achievement of international justice. Meeting Mr. Rogozin and the accompanying delegation, Dr. al-Halaqi stressed that the veto reflects a Russian-Chinese strategic determination to confront the US-French irrational policy. He added that a new world order has become more clear, represented by ending the hegemony of the unipolar system. Dr. al-Halaqi referred that the great victories realized by the Syrian people were the result of the Syrian Arab Army steadfastness and the steadfastness of the Syrian government in confrontation of the economic war being launched by the enemies of Syria. The Prime Minister expressed Syrian people's high appreciation for Russian stance, stressing the necessity of developing economic relations to reach the level of distinguished political ties linking the two states. The two sides signed a memorandum of understanding for cooperation in the customs domain. Finance Minister Dr. Ismail stressed that relations between the two states are excellent and distinguished. Syria's joining to the free trade zone of the Euro-Asian Economic Group was also discussed during the meeting. Russia's permanent representative to the UN, Vitaly Churkin, asserted that the French draft resolution submitted to the Security Council, which sought to refer the crisis in Syria to the International Criminal Court, is merely a political maneuver by those who don't believe in a political solution for the crisis. Churkin said that the French representative and his Western colleagues openly told him that they don't believe that a political solution can be achieved and that they will proceed with putting the draft resolution to vote, knowing in advance that it will not be passed.
Syria's permanent representative to the UN, Dr. Bashar al-Jafari, said that the Western and Arab draft resolutions submitted recently to the Security Council and the UN General Assembly reflect the hysteric state of the countries, pushing them in their attempts to influence the presidential elections in Syria. Al-Jafari said that the French resolution submitted under the name of criminal justice is far removed from its concept. Rather, it was tailored to target Syria politically, adding that the Western states pushing this resolution to vote, despite knowing that there is a Russian-Chinese veto against it, shows the Western hypocrisy in dealing with the crisis in Syria and their attempts to embarrass Russia and China using the humanitarian issue. He noted that hypocrisy at the Security Council continues, with Britain drafting a resolution on the humanitarian issue in Syria alongside some Western countries and some states that are Arabic in name only. Al-Jafari asserted that Western states are a primary element of the crisis in Syria and that these states are finally acknowledging the presence of terrorists in Syria to keep up with reality. But this is merely a tactical step, not a strategic step. He noted that the US is not part of the International Criminal Court and therefore has no right to lecture anyone about this issue. He noted that the US is not part of the International Criminal Court and therefore has no right to lecture anyone about this issue, noting that the US always ensures that any draft resolution related to it does not prosecute US soldiers for the war crimes they committed around the world. Syria's representative said that the US delegation brought a prejudiced witness to the Security Council session is both a formal infringement and an attempt to turn attention away from reality, asserting that the ICC is a politicized entity, tailor-made to extort and pressure third world countries. Al-Jafari said that the Western countries' actions prove that they don't want the crisis in Syria to end, as they want to create a constitutional vacuum in it, which they can exploit and exert pressure on Syria and portray it as a failure, all for the sake of undermining the concept of sovereignty, which no one can overstep, even in the field of humanitarian aid. He asserted that the UN General Secretariat continuously and deliberately distorts facts by falsifying reports from its bodies operating in Syria, presenting misleading and incorrect data to the Security Council, adding that Syria drew the attention of the Secretary General and his chief aides to this, but they refrained from doing anything about it.
Following successful operations in the vicinity of Aleppo Central Prison, where it has broken months-long siege on the troops defending it, a Syrian Arab Army unit continued its national duty to rescue the country for crimes of terrorists. Earlier, Syrian Arab Army units successfully wrapped up military operations in the vicinity of Aleppo Central Prison after they had broken the siege on the troops defending it. The command announced that Syrian Arab Army units have regained control over a site where a law enforcement battalion is stationed north of the prison and tightened grip on the adjacent areas, inflicting back-breaking losses on the armed groups. The statement lauded the fact as a body blow for terrorist gangs which used Aleppo northern countryside as a springboard to launch attacks against Aleppo city, adding that it gives the lie to claims and fabrications about terrorist groups seizing control of the prison.
مدني متطوع ذاتي مع الجيش لحماية البلد، حماية الشرف. ان شاء الله وضعك كويس. الحمد لله. الحمد لله وضعك كويس. الحمد لله. سيدي خليك يا حبيبي خليك. الحمد لله على السلامة. كيف منظمات الجو تمام؟ الحمد لله كلهم ما يدعوا لك. همة قوية. الحمد لله على السلامة. قابلتوا بلاء حسن. الله يخلينا اياكم يا رب. ابدا حملتم الرسالة كما عهدناها بكم. الله يخلينا اياك يا رب. المقاتل العربي السوري. الرجل المقدام الذي تربى في مدرسة القائد الخالد وفي عرين القائد مفدى. هذا القائد العظيم يحتاج إلى هؤلاء الرجال الصادقين. قائدنا أفضل رجل في العالم أكيد دون شك، وأنتم الفتية الصادقين اللي لازم تكونوا حوله وكلياتنا نكون حوله كما كانوا فتية رسول الله، قاتلوا بشرف دفاعا عن الحق. هاي رسالتنا وهي مدرستنا.
بقوتكم نحن صبرنا بالسجن الحمد لله.
وأخطأ المراهنون، خسئ الخاسئون. سوريا ترحب بضيوفها، من يأتي إليها ضيف أهلا وسهلا، لأنها بلد الكرم وبلد الشهامة، إرث السيادي. أما من يأتي إليها فاسدا لن يقبر حتى في أرضها. بالروح بالدم نفديك سوريا.
In Daraa, units of the Syrian Arab Army continue their progress in Nawa of Daraa countryside as they killed and eliminated a number of terrorists and still chasing terrorists remnants there. In Deir ez-Zor, units of the Syrian Arab Army seized a hideout for terrorists containing amounts of various weaponry. French Foreign Minister Bernard Cazeneuve declared that the French authorities suspect that Souad Marah, the sister of the extremist Mohammed Marah, who is responsible of Toulouse attack 2012, might be in Syria. Kaznov said during a meeting with Europe Radio that Suad Marah did not head to Tunisia as her family stated, but she headed to Syria with her 4 children. He clarified that she took a plane going to Barcelona, Istanbul, using the Turkish Airlines. Then she took a plane from Istanbul city to Gaziantep, which means she might be in Syria along with her friend. In a related context, the Tunisian newspaper Al-Shuruq clarified that the Department of the Criminal Court in Tunis examined a case related to a Tunisian suspect who traveled to Syria and came back after he joined terrorist groups and trained there with Turkish military personnel for a sum of money. Welcome back. The Syrian citizens in the occupied Syrian Golan demanded the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon to work through the international community and the United Nations to allow them to practice their legal right and cast their ballots in the coming presidential elections by putting ballot boxes in occupied Golan villages' squares. Finally, Syrian embassy in Moscow, in cooperation with the Syrian community and the National Union for Syrian Students in participation of Russian friends, organized a solidarity stand at Martyrs Square in Moscow to show their support to the presidential elections and to appreciate the Syrian Arab Army's sacrifices in confronting terrorism to which the country is exposed. Raising the Syrian and Russian flags, the participants opened the event with chanting the Syrian national anthem. They also affirmed that participation in the elections is a national duty, hoping that all citizens take part in this democratic event. The participants expressed their pride in the Syrian Arab Army for defeating foreign-backed terrorism, condemning the Western hypocrisy on Syria. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break. And the steadfastness of the Syrian government in confrontation of the economic war being launched by the enemies of Syria. The Prime Minister expressed Syrian people's high appreciation for Russian stance, stressing the necessity of developing economic relations to reach the level of distinguished political ties linking the two states. The two sides signed a Russian trade, economic, scientific and technical cooperation. Talks dealt with bilateral relations and the importance of broadening aspects of the standing cooperation with President al-Assad, appreciating Russia's stances in support of the Syrian people in their war against terrorism. The President affirmed the role of Russia in preserving stability in the world and confronting the Western attempts of dominating countries in the region. Prime Minister Dr. Wael al-Halaqi affirmed that the fourth Russian-Chinese veto for Syria serves the achievement of international justice. Meeting Mr. Rogozin and the accompanying delegation, Dr. al-Halaqi stressed Ladies and gentlemen, this is Irado Krikorian with the news in English. President Bashar al-Assad received a Russian governmental delegation headed by Deputy Prime Minister Dmitry Rogozin, head of the Russian side, to the Joint Committee of the Syrian Rest, that the veto reflects a Russian-Chinese strategic determination to confront the US-French irrational policy. He added that a new world order has become more clear, represented by ending the hegemony of the unipolar system. Dr. al-Halaqi referred that the great victories realized by the Syrian people were the result of the Syrian Arab Army steadfastness